right, it's 4:30 on Wednesday, May 13th, 2026. I'm calling to order the CAMPO monthly meeting. Can I have a roll call, please?
Chair Novak,
Here.
Vice Chair Maloney,
Here.
Member Bagwell, Member Casanelli, Member Costa,
Here.
Member Nordlow, Member Schutte,
Here.
Ex officio Member Vary. A quorum is present.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 3, it's our first opportunity for public comment. And we will have public comment later on for action items, but this is a general public comment period. Is there anyone who would like to speak up at this point? And for those of you who are not aware, there's an RTC meeting that immediately follows this, so you might be here for that as well. All righty. Possible action number 4, approval of the minutes of our last meeting of April 8th, 2026. Are there any changes or modifications at all? If not, I will take a motion to approve.
I will move to approve the minutes from the April 8th, 2026 meeting.
Okay, second, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. All righty, we're on to our possible action item. Discussion and possible action regarding contract 263-00235 with Moffett and Nickel to assist in the development of the East Dayton Bridge Project feasibility study located in Lyon County for a total not to exceed amount of $1,189,493.05. And Chris, you are listed as the presenter at this point?
And I have my,
Oh, I forgot you got it.
it's all good. NRS 281A.420 requires me to disclose conflicts of interest and abstain from voting when I have a disqualifying conflict. My nephew is Chris Martinovich, who is employed by Carson City and will be presenting this item. Chris and I are not receiving compensation of any kind directly related to this item. It will not foreseeably impair or enhance the terms of his service with the city, and we are not affected by the outcome of this item to a greater degree than any other resident in Carson City. NRS 281A.420 only requires abstention in clear cases, and the independent judgment of a reasonable person in my position would not be impacted by my familial relationship. Therefore, I do not have a disqualifying conflict, and I will be voting on this matter.
Okay, thank you. Now it's for times for Chris. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I really don't have a lot to comment on this item. I think the item itself is relatively self-explanatory. Other than to say this project's been, talked about for a long time, and so we're taking some action here to advance it and see what bridge types, concepts, locations can be identified out there in Lyon County. And I know Mr. Casanelli's very interested in this as well. But I will turn it back to you, Mr. Chair, should there be any questions from the members of CAMPO. Thank you.
Okay. I think most of us in our packet today looked over the scope of work, and it looked very thorough for me. And I think there was a lot of time and effort that went into it. And realistically, for the price, I thought it was a fair negotiation. So I don't know if we have any other comments at this point from the group. Mark?
Had a question. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the winning bidder, Moffett and Nickel. Not familiar with them. Is there, any information about them that you have?
Well, I do know that a representative from Moffett Nickel is in the audience today. So Corey's here in the audience. From what I know of Moffett Nickel, I have not personally worked with them. I know they do have an office here in Carson City. They are a large national firm, and they do a lot of projects looking at bridges. So this is very consistent with their portfolio of projects. They're supported by a number of sub-consultants, many of which are local here in the Northern Nevada area and have familiarity either with Carson City, CAMPO, Lyon County, and just the general NDOT as well as a key partner in this. So, I think just because we haven't worked with Moffett Nickel, I think they've shown that they're definitely qualified to complete this type of project.
Yeah, I noticed there were 6 subcontractors, some of them with familiar sounding names. I'm assuming that on their study that the basic, generally the route has been agreed upon with Dayton or they're in a certain parameter of what they're looking at?
There is no agreed upon route. There's an area of where we think it may go or may not go, but there is no specific identified location. That's part of why we're doing this feasibility study, and that's part of the requirements under the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, to not go in with any predetermined conditions. We have to look at all the alternatives, including a no-build alternative.
But you have a general idea where it's going to be.
Generally, somewhere between the existing bridge of the Carson River and where the river narrows down toward Fort Churchill.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments at all?
I got just one quick question. And we do, Lyon County, we do have preferred locations, but in due diligence is what this is all about, to identify the correct places. But I did have one question on the, it mentioned, I can't find it now, but there was going to be monthly meetings between the consultant engineer and with CAMPO project manager, and I just wanted to know if the Lyon County staff was going to be included in those meetings, or some sort of briefing during that time.
Member Casanelli, absolutely. Lyon County is a key partner in this. I'm looking to work with county staff on helping, CAMPO manage the project. So yes, Lyon County will be involved in all of those meetings to keep you all, or the county manager, informed as to our progress.
Perfect. Thank you.
And Chris, you'll be the CAMPO lead on this?
That is correct.
Okay, so we'll know. All righty, any other questions or comments at this point? It's straightforward, it's been around for a while, but NEPA is the next step, and we don't know the outcome. But we'll see how it goes. At that point, I'd like to entertain a motion for approval. Oh, public comment, sorry.
Public comment,
I can always get in a hurry here. Is there any public comment on this one? All righty.
Chair Novak, I would love to make that motion and move to approve a contract with Moffett and Nickel to assist in the development of the East Dayton Bridge Project feasibility study located in Lyon County for a total not to exceed amount of $1,189,493.05.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Motion passes unanimously. All right. Moving on to our next item. So I think it's Chris's report here. Yep, our transportation manager's report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to give an update, a couple of items in the news. Many of you have probably heard about a fuel tax holiday, possible fuel tax holiday at the federal level. I just wanted to indicate that would not affect fuel taxes in our local jurisdictions. It would also not affect fuel taxes at the state level. In fact, there is a law in NRS, I believe it's 373 or one of those 363, that talks about should the federal government ever stop collecting gasoline tax, that the state shall collect such a tax. So lots to work out there. We'll see what happens, but I know fuel taxes for all of our counties is critical to provide our infrastructure, funding our roads, funding our projects like the East Dayton Bridge project. So important. We'll see where that goes over the next few weeks. Also on the state level, as I've mentioned in previous meetings, I'm a member of the Regional Rail Advisory Committee Working Group with the Nevada Legislature. That group is concluding its meetings. We have one final meeting in June where we will be reviewing the draft report. Not a lot to report out of the committee at this point. The primary recommendations from the committee include additional modifications to state statutes to allow funding mechanisms for rail. There aren't currently a lot of funding mechanisms that could fund regional rail transit type opportunities. Also, the committee is recommending legislation to allow for the governing and operating of rail services in the state. I believe RTC Southern Nevada has some authority, but agencies like RTC Washoe or even CAMPO Carson City have no such authority to operate rail. So one of the recommendations is to allow those agencies or other agencies, a new agency, to operate a regional rail should that ever come forward. And then lastly, a recommendation is to continue to study and understand what it's going to cost, what laws are needed. So the formation of a more permanent committee is going to be a recommendation, is my understanding, of the report that'll come out and be presented to the Committee on Growth and Infrastructure for the next coming session in 2027. So just wanted to give that update for that working group. I believe our next meeting is the first week of June. I can't remember the day, but it might be June 3rd or something along those lines. More locally, also on the state level, before I go to local item, there is another committee being formed, and I may have already met, I don't know the schedule off the top of my head, but discussing e-bikes and e-scooter, potential legislation related to e-bikes and e-scooter at the state level. There's, I think, we're seeing a lot of use of those pieces of equipment, e-bikes, e-scooters, on a variety of our infrastructure, and there's not a lot of regulation and understanding how what regulation may or may not be needed, and the safety aspects of that are something that's being considered by a new committee, and legislation in the 27 legislative session is likely as well. So something we as staff at the CAMPO level, at the city level, are also going to be monitoring to see how it may or may not affect what we do on a day-to-day basis. And finally, I'll just close here on the local level, as we're still reviewing some of the STBG funding that we are looking at. We'll talk about a little STBG funding at the RTC meeting, but I'm wanting to work with NDOT and the financial team over there, Kevin as well, on just finalizing the numbers so we make sure we have a realistic and accurate amount of STBG funding for programming of all of our projects. So look for that for the June meeting coming up. Those conclude my items. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any questions for Chris at all before we move on? All righty. Item 6B, Nevada Department of Transportation report from the newly promoted Assistant Director of Planning. I watched the board meeting the other day. Okay.
That might be of interest to you guys. One being our update to our road safety audit guidelines. For those that don't know, road safety audit is a formal safety performance examination of facilities that either we're going to build or enhance with basically other safety elements or even pavement projects. Some of the benefits include increased communication and collaboration. They also help us look at the facility or what we're planning to do with the facility in a multi-objective manner so that it's not a single lens that we're looking at that facility. It helps reduce costs as well, so you don't get late change orders and things like that into the projects. Some of the updates include alignment with FHWA standards. This will help us enhance some consistency. Also, it supports a safe system approach. Some of the other elements include request forms, RSA request forms, and also stakeholder input. That's one thing that we wanted to include, is to allow for local jurisdictions as well as stakeholders to provide some input into those RSAs. We're hopeful that this is out soon for not only us to use, but also it's something that I believe other MPOs and jurisdictions can use to help inform on what kind of construction they're going to have within their transportation network. The next is our asset management plan update. This is a federally required program. We must include a 10-year financial plan, and it must be certified every 4 years by FHWA. Basically, the assets that we include are pavement, bridge, as well as our ITS components. This schedule is moving right along. It's perfect, right? We're updating a plan in 2026 for a new transportation bill to hit in 2027 that may or may not change the direction that we're going. But as is everything, we try to maintain our good relationship with FHWA. The project kicked off in April of 2025. We are going to submit to FHWA May this month, And then we're hopeful to have concurrence in November so that we can have an approved plan. And those are the two updates I have for you guys. Any questions?
Yeah, if I remember right, the pavement and the bridge, the focus is on the National Highway System,
Correct. NHS.
D and 580, on 395. All righty, and road safety audits also are a proven safety countermeasure, so they're on the list. And I don't know if we need one here yet, but we have, a local road safety plan to follow up on. So, all right, any other questions for Kevin on NDOT status? John?
Just one quick follow-up to our last meeting on the Dayton pavement rehabilitation project. And I know I was questioning the start of that project, and sadly, the Friday following the last CAMPO meeting, that intersection, we had another fatality there. And I just was hoping that was going to be out to bid right now. Do you know if that project has gone out to bid for that?
I will double check. I again, from the last meeting, we do have a false start, so it should be out to bid shortly. If it's not, again, I'll email you. I did email you last month,
Right.
and you do now have Eric Sheets' contact.
Yeah,
So
and I do appreciate you following up with me. And that was,
anytime.
yeah.
And so I'll get with him tomorrow and see where we're at with getting that out the door.
Yeah, that's great, because I'd love to be able to report back that it has been awarded at some point. So, but appreciate you. Thank you.
Got it.
Okay, see, you have another NDOT question, comment?
I'll just add that
Sure.
Kevin's been a great partner for many years for Campo and Carson City staff, and so well deserved on the promotion, and happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Seeing no other comments, we'll move on to our next to last item here, 6C. Other comments and reports from any of the folks up here or from staff at all? Okay. Knew this would be a quick meeting. So I think it's time for our second opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone else who would like to speak up at this point? Okay, seeing none, I guess this meeting is now adjourned, and we'll start RTC in 5
minutes.
Thank you.
Regional Transportation Commission meeting to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Chair Bagwell,
Here.
Vice Chair Schutte, Commissioner Costa,
Here.
Commissioner Maloney,
Here.
Commissioner Novak.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you so much. We're now on our opening public comment, and we had some that we thought we would queue up right away for ease of doing this. And so please feel free to talk to us.
Hi, my name is Jordan. I'm with the RTC.
You're representing Dayton residents.
Yeah, I'm representing Dayton residents. I actually need to inquire about opting in or
For transportation.
opting in for transportation. I need rides and stuff out to the
Carson, Reno, Sparks, wherever. There's
from.
Can you tell us where you live? Where do
Yeah.
you actually live?
I'm trying to
in Dayton.
In
in
Dayton?
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Okay. And
Lyon
so
County.
you're asking us to
send a bus out there. so I
approve the
can-
plan to connect Lyon County and
He's seeking
Carson
employment.
City for bus rides.
He
Okay.
doesn't have transportation all
Sorry.
the time, and
Okay.
he needs that. Many people probably need it in Lyon County, so we were really pushing to get some attention in that area.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much for your testimony.
No problem.
Thank you. Do I have anyone else that wants to make any comments on that? Come on up.
Thank you, John Casanelli, Lyon County Commissioner, actually a representative for Dayton. And thank you, Jordan. And just wanted to give a quick update on that. And I have been advocating and with help from Supervisor Schutte, we've discussed getting a bus or a shuttle of some point in Dayton, probably at the Senior Citizens Center pickup, and taking that to the Jack hub in Carson City. At that point, riders can go to the hospital, shopping, to Western Nevada College, wherever they need to go. And I know Marcus has been helpful as well on potentially obtaining that bus. I'm just trying to find funding for a driver right now. So, yeah, but we're hopeful that in the future we can get that taken care of. So.
Great. Thank you so much. Is there any other public comment at the beginning of the meeting? Okay, then we're going to go ahead and move on to agenda item 4, which is approval of our minutes for April 8th, 2026. Does any member have any corrections or changes? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion for approval, please.
I move
Member
to approve
Schutte.
the minutes from April 8th, 2026 as presented.
I will second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect it was unanimous. We're now on to agenda item 5A, which is a discussion-only presentation on the state or practice on how we prioritize road projects. And it's a discussion only since there's no action, no disclosure. Mr. Martinovich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Martinovich, Transportation Manager. Wanted to walk through a presentation today. This is unbelievable. I want to say I turned this on and I checked it and I left it. It's not doing anything. One moment. Okay, I think we're working. Yes, here we are. Victory. Hit buttons and something happens. Okay, wanted to take the RTC through a couple of items. Part of this, most of this presentation is at the request of various RTC board members last couple of months in regards to some innovative technologies, as well as just a refresher status of what we do and costs associated with what we do. So first slide here talks about our pavement management plan that the Regional Transportation Commission has approved. Pavement management plan dates back a number of years. We're getting close to, I believe, eight years old now. We've used this plan. It's on its second version, and a new version will come up following District 5 in 2028. The current version was approved by the RTC in May of 2023, and our general goal as documented in the plan is to keep the good roads good. And just as a summary, as you all know this, but for those maybe listening, we rotate through performance districts on an annual basis, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're currently on item 5B looking at performance district 4 in the yellow shown on the map there. We set those the pavement management plan talks about PCI targets, and so we set our priorities in part based on some of those targets, and in part based on the condition of our actual roads. And again, the plan is reviewed every 5 years. So the pavement condition index, as a refresher, is shown here. PCI is the acronym for that. And we know that pavement deteriorates on a life cycle. That pavement life is shown in blue. And through various rehabilitation, preventative maintenance, or reconstruction methods, we can refresh and renew the life of that pavement. Pavement life varies depending on how thick it is, how much traffic's using it, where it's located, what the soil is, what the weather conditions are, lots of variable factors for the life of a pavement, but generally between 30 to 50 years is what we would expect to get out of a pavement life before it becomes failed, and a PCI of less than 10. So that standard PCI rating table there, color-coded with the different categories we use, and there are maps available on the city's website, carsoncity.gov, in the Transportation Division page. It has the current PCI map of all the roads within Carson City. So if you're interested in what your road is, definitely you can go check that map out and see what it is. We do review our roads periodically through a physical survey. The last survey was completed around the end of 2024. We've completed 2 surveys prior to that. Current condition of our roads as of 2025, which is a projection based on our model analysis that we use. Paver is our software, so that can project the life of the pavement. And we update and I want to say try to narrow down the accuracy of that model each time we complete a physical pavement survey. So an estimated PCI citywide is 58 for all roads. Regional roads are better than local roads, as we've discussed a number of times here at the RTC. Performance District 4 has a current PCI of around 59. Regional roads are a little bit higher than the city average at 76, in large part due to the reconstruction of South Carson, which we'll be discussing again on 5B, and local roads are pretty much a little worse than some of the other regions of the city. The roads in District 4 tend to be a little bit older, being in the older part of town. How do we fund our transportation, our road projects here in Carson City? We primarily use our gasoline taxes, a little bit of sales tax for maintenance activities. Just as a bar chart showing gallons sold in the line, the black line is gallons sold in Carson City. The gold bars are the revenue collected by fiscal year. Dating back to 2006. So in 2006, we collected $3.4 million. In 2025, we collected $4.1 million. That's a 19% increase over 20 years, so that's less than 1% revenue growth per year for the last 20 years. When we add that to other revenue sources, we can see, as all of you know, we present the fuel tax revenue on a monthly basis to the RTC. It's not only the gallons sold of gasoline, but it's the gallons sold of diesel, as well as the sales tax, the 0.25% sales tax collected that funds street maintenance and operations. So we report all these items, including the waste management franchise fee, electric vehicle charging is in that report, development contributions, we're tracking those, and the Complete Streets donation, the voluntary $2 donation you make at a vehicle registration on an annual basis. And that report is included in item 6C at the end of our packets. When we talk about costs, we see a significant increase in cost, and this is not unique to us. It's common across the country. It's common at the state level. Our partner jurisdictions in Washoe County, Douglas County are all dealing with escalation of costs. This data is through 2023. I haven't pulled the 2024, and I don't know if 2025 is available, but I expect it to be higher from what I'm seeing. And currently, we're all experiencing high prices, increasing month over month at our current state today. So while our revenue has increased, our miles have increased slightly, but the cost of constructing our roads has massively increased 190% over the last 22 years. So it's a 190% increase in cost, and our revenue is that same between 2000, not just 2026, but between 2000 and 27% gas and percent increase in fuel revenue from the gas tax alone. Looking at some specific costs of things that we do a lot of in Carson City, we do a lot of slurry seal. So in 2019, the cost to slurry microsurface on Clearview Drive, 21,000 or 210,000 square feet, cost us $22 cents per square foot. Our recent bid for Stewart Street, very similar quantity, was 45 cents per square foot. So that's more than double the cost in 6-7 years, essentially. Cost for pavement patching, we do a lot of pavement patching. When we bid these out, 36,000 square feet on Airport Road in 2020 cost us $8.10. And in 2026, the same Stewart Street project coincidentally had the same quantity, $30 a square foot for a pavement patch. So there's where this is a case in point of how our costs have increased and our revenues are relatively flat. Another point I like to make here is that in 2000, we looked this up, a gallon of gas cost $1.25. Of that, Carson City was getting its 15.35 cents. That was 12% of that cost was going to Carson City. My date here, I did this presentation about 3 weeks ago, so we're probably a little bit higher than that now, unfortunately, but we're still collecting the same 15.35 cents. And so only 3.4% of the cost that you pay at the pump is coming into Carson City for reconstructing roads. So our costs, our revenue have not changed. We don't have escalation, fuel indexing like some of our partner counties in Washoe and Clark County, where they have fuel revenue indexing. Carson City does not. And so we receive the same 15.35 cents that we received back in 2000, in fact, 1998. What do we do with the revenue we have? We've got a pretty robust program through our pavement management plan is indicated. We do stopgap activities. That's crack sealing, potholes, patching. A lot of that is done internally by our street operations crews. They do a great job, and they've been out on College Parkway and Airport Road and Fairview and Buckeye and many of the roads around town, getting ahead and crack sealing to help save costs for when we do preserve those roadways through projects. So it's great to have that in-house capability. They do good work, and I think it does save the city money for having that internally. On the preservation side, we do primarily microsurface, which is a very small aggregate oil mixture that's spread across the road. It cures very quickly, allowing vehicles to drive on it relatively quickly. We are looking at some other pavement methods, and at Airport Road and College Park will be a chip seal, 3/8 inch diameter rock chip seal we'll be putting out there, which is a little bit more robust than a microsurface, given the condition of those roads. So those are preservation surface treatment type practices that we do. On the rehabilitation side, there's mill and overlay, which we haven't done too much lately, but we are looking at doing more of that. And then full depth reconstruction, which is where we remove the pavement, potentially the subgrade, maybe not, and then reconstruct it, brand new pavement. And there's many examples of that from Colorado Street to Winnie Lane that are more recent. William Street, I will note, has a combination of all of these. We have some mill and overlay, we have some reconstruction, so you'll see various pavement methods being implemented on the reconstruction of William Street between Carson Street and I-580. When we talk about our design and construction processes, projects are designed by staff internal to Public Works as well as consultants. We do export some of our work to consultants to help us design, given the number of projects we're working on. Projects are bid for construction following NRS 338 and awards to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. Projects are inspected and tested by primarily internal staff do the inspection. We do consult out for material testing. We don't have a lab. We can't do soil samples or oil samples, aggregate samples and things like that. So we do consult those out. But by and large, all the inspection, document control, management of our projects is done by Public Works staff, and they're very busy, especially this time of year, given the number of cones that are out on our roads. Our project materials, as well as the means and methods, are governed by the standard specifications for public works construction. This is we refer to it as the Orange Book, mostly because it has an orange cover. We also follow the Silver Book standards, which are NDOT's standard specifications for public works construction, and occasionally we'll pull in others depending on the type of work we're doing. So Orange Book is our standard. It's the same method used by Douglas County, Washoe County, Churchill County, Lyon County, RTC Washoe, so it's a very common, we all work together to develop those specifications and implement them consistently across our region. And as, of course, the RTC knows, the project status reports are given, it's the status of our project every other month. We don't have one this month, but we will have one in June. The roadway, to get to a roadway project, looks like this. There's engineering design, which is generally 8 to 12% of the total construction cost, depending on complexity. Our preservation projects have a lower cost than the reconstruction, as there's less work, design work that goes into those. The construction in 2024 dollars is about $2.1 million per mile is what we're looking at this time, more or less. You can see the breakdown of what those costs compile of for those projects. And then inspection and material testing is generally 3 to 5% of the total cost of a project. So in total, to reconstruct a road is generally around $2.4 million today, and to preserve a road is around $380,000 per mile. And those are pretty ballpark, but that's generally what we're talking about. So we've put together and is included in the packet with support from our consultant, Applied Pavement Technologies, and the Nevada Local Technical Assistance Program, LTAP, put together an Emerging and Innovative Technologies memo, which is in the document or in the packet for your review. If you have any questions on that, it's definitely in there. I'm just going to cover really quickly some of the items that Carson City has done that we've tried for innovative techniques. We have done fiber reinforced double layer slurry. We tried that on Curry Street 5 years ago on District 4 Curry Street. We looked at doing fiber reinforced pavement, both on patches on Solomon Road in front of the high school, as well as the repaving of Long Street. That was a mill and overlay, and we overlaid that with a fiber reinforced asphalt pavement. We've also been using mastic more. There were large cracks that were filled in Governor's Field parking lot. So if you've driven out to Governor's Field parking lot, we did mastic in a few of the cracks out there, and in a few of the other cracks, we did the standard crack sealing material, and then that was all slurried. When we look at the cracks that were used with mastic, they're still closed, they're still holding up. So we're pretty confident now that mastic seems to be holding up a little bit better than our typical crack sealing, especially from when you talk about those cracks that are 2 to 3 inches wide. Mastic seems to be a product that we'd like to investigate more. It is significantly more expensive than normal crack sealing, but it may have a longer life and it may provide better use and longevity than a typical crack sealing rubberized mixture that we put into the cracks, or even patching for that matter. We've used mastic in the public works yard on a slightly different way. Instead of laying it in the crack, we spread it across the surface in kind of, I think they're 2 or 3 foot wide layers, I guess, and parallel to each other across the road. And so there was alligator cracking, there were wide cracks, there were a variety of surface deformations that were occurring out there, and we've used mastic, and it appears to be holding up. It's been done in 2 occasions, and it appears to be holding up relatively well, and there's a lot of trucks that drive in the public works yard. So this is another area where mastic may be beneficial as a layer over alligator cracked areas, either prior to an overlay or maybe prior to a slurry. It may provide some of that breakage so that the cracks don't immediately come through and be visible on the surface. So more to come on that, and we're definitely interested in continuing to try mastic. And I'll note that on our District 3 pavement preservation project, which includes roads around 5th Street, Eagle Valley Middle School, including Hells Bells, Edmonds, in that area, we are looking at using mastic in some of the large cracks in those streets. So we're going to continue to try that in a real world now application rather than just a parking lot. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take questions. I just wanted to say that we are looking at this. We do plan to see what we can do, not only in the District 3, but in the potentially the District 4 projects for some of these techniques to try to improve longevity, improve the condition, and save a little bit of dollars by not having to reconstruct everything just because there's a few cracks on the road. So that concludes my topics. I will turn it back to you, Mr.
Chris,
Vice
just
Chair.
wanted to mention that any of the new roads that developers put in that will become public roads in the future, they're following the same process, right? They're getting designed, inspected, constructed, and I don't know if they're using any unique products or coming back in the future for seals or other things like that. But I think, that, the key is anything that's brand new that anybody builds in Carson is meeting the latest specs.
Yes, our development engineering inspectors do inspect those developer constructed roads, and they are required to provide us with material testing summaries to verify that what they've said they've put down is indeed what they put down. So we are checking on those roads, yes.
Does any other members have a question?
I just have a comment. Thank you so much, and I know you've given this presentation from time to time, and I appreciate the review. It's really helpful, so thank you.
Anybody else have Mr. Costa?
Yes, I want to thank you, Chris, and your staff putting together some excellent documents and well-researched and extensive bibliography where a person can go ahead and research on their own more if they want to do that. I was concerned about the construction costs. They're going up, but I noticed they shot up. The arrow goes almost straight up from 21 to 23. And it looks like 24 and 25 and so on is increasing at the same rate. So it's...
I think there was some flattening at the end of 25. I don't know if that data is available yet, but we shall see, and I will try to keep that slide updated. It's one that Public Works has been using for a number of years now, and I think it helps tell a story. So if we can keep that up to date, I plan to certainly do that.
Okay. Okay, and you also had here that some of this new tech has been used in Carson City. And I guess, how does that compare in the costs with that using that as opposed to the old one, the old methods?
We do know from our experience with things like the fiber reinforced asphalt is it is more expensive. It's about I think 25 to 30% more expensive, and so we're hopeful that by using those, the pavement lasts longer. And there's the company that has provided that fiber reinforcement has given lots of case studies, and they've done tons of projects, not only here, but in Arizona and California. And so, those are still relatively new, 5, 6, 7 years old. So we really won't know how the fiber reinforcing works until we hit that life cycle, 10, 20, 30 years down the line. So optimistic, the company's definitely optimistic, and I'm optimistic too that there is positives in that. And so if we can get 30% of life out of it, then maybe that 25 to 30% cost is worth it. So something we're going to have to keep monitoring and look at those case studies for those longer term projects.
It'll be a tough one because you'll have to compare the higher upfront costs with maybe lower costs later on in the future with that. I noticed looking on North Carson Street, there's a lot of, appear to be longitudinal cracks for that. Do you think this technology, the mastic or this film, the fiber one, would be useful in correcting that, maybe making that last longer?
I think mastic has a lot of potential. I mean, what Public Works has tried a number of locations, and you can see these when you drive around on Clearview or Fairview, is when those wide cracks occur, we would go out there and we would cut the pavement on each side of the crack, and then we'd put a patch in there. And Rick probably knows this. We end up with 2 wide cracks. So, maybe that's not the best solution right now for all the conditions, given the pavement. So mastic is one where we're looking at to do that. And it doesn't matter if it's a longitudinal crack or a transverse crack. I think mastic can work in all those circumstances, especially the wider ones. It's not so good for narrower cracks, less than an inch, because it's got aggregate in it, and that aggregate doesn't get into the crack. So it really works for those wider cracks where more rubber material works for smaller cracks.
Okay, go ahead and keep my comments brief, But I see in the next agenda item, maybe we can talk about, some of this new type of technology being used in some of the proposed projects. I think that would be useful. And again, thanks to you and your staff for doing a good job on this.
Commissioner Maloney?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great presentation, thank you. I think one of the things that we do really well in Carson City is testing some of these technologies in limited applications. So I loved hearing about the small tests for like the mastic. We can't afford and we don't want to be the guinea pig nationwide. And so kind of waiting and seeing how these things are working, I think is the smart approach. And I think we're looking at it the right way. So thank you.
Okay, this is a non-action item, so I won't do public comment, and we will move on to agenda item 5B, which is the action item for our fiscal year 27 transportation infrastructure projects for Performance District 4. Member Schutte, may I have your disclosure, please?
You bet. NRS 281A.420 requires me to disclose conflicts of interest and abstain from voting when I have a disqualifying conflict. My nephew is Chris Martinovich, who is employed by Carson City and will be presenting this item. Chris and I are not receiving compensation of any kind directly related to this item. It will not foreseeably impair or enhance the terms of his service with the city, and we are not affected by the outcome of this item to a greater degree than any other resident of Carson City. NRS 281A.420 only requires abstention in clear cases, and the independent judgment of a reasonable person in my position would not be impacted by my familial relationship. Therefore, I do not have a disqualifying conflict and will be voting on this matter.
Thank you so much. So Chris and Casey, are you gonna have a
Yes.
slideshow?
I'm going to start and Casey's going to, I think, finish, I think is our plan here. So we're going to talk about District 4 pavement project prioritization for fiscal year 27, so fiscal year beginning July 1st. So as mentioned in the previous item, we are following our pavement preservation plan, looking at regional roads and for the first time officially, local roads in the project prioritization process. We're looking at both preservation and rehabilitation projects. This process is really a data-driven process governed by data and a scoring system that we'll go through here in a moment. So the project prioritization process uses a bunch of different data sources. It uses our pavement condition index, PCI, or we use work history, our traffic volumes or the connectivity of a roadway. It looks at our crash data, looks at the utility needs, it looks at our transit needs and transit routes, planned improvements identified through various plans and corridor studies, functional classification of the road being local road or our regional roads, which include collector roads and arterial roads, the roadway use, and we complete this, as I mentioned, for both local and our regional roads. The project prioritization procedures are included in the exhibit. I believe it's exhibit 2. Sorry, I don't have that.
Exhibit 2.
Exhibit 2 are the step-by-step project prioritization procedures. I wasn't going to go through them explicitly, but the 9 steps are shown here on the screen. We do map these for our internal use and for the benefit of you all here. And so this is a map of the projects that are classified as ideal, at risk, or the worst roads in Performance District 4. So this is the pool of projects we were drawing from following step 5. These are all the roadway segments that we looked at and considered through the prioritization process. Those in green are the ones ideal for a preservation surface treatment. Those in the yellows are in that area of about to be a full depth reconstruction. Maybe we can do some preservation, maybe we can do some mill and overlay, and those are red are either they're already a reconstruct or they're the worst roads within the Performance District. I'm going to turn it over to Casey to talk about some of the worst roads in District 4 on the regional side. Casey.
Thanks, Chris. This slide shows the worst regional roads under consideration in District 4. These segments have PCI below 40. And this slide shows the worst local roads under consideration, again, under 40 PSI or PCI. Go ahead and switch for me. Back on the regional roads, the following at-risk low PCI segments were taken through step 8. The scoring and ranking is shown here, broken out by treatment type with a separate breakout for worst PCI. Overlap between worst PCI and at-risk high priority rehabilitation is shown in bold. The scoring is broken cleanly along treatment types 1, 2, and 3 at the bottom and high priority rehabilitation at the top. This is a coincidence. That is not a function of the scoring process. The regional roads were then grouped into projects for estimating. The table shows the projects created and their costs. The same process was followed for local roads. However, the number of at-risk and eligible worst PCI local road segments exceeded what can be shown on a slide. This complete list of 63 segments can be found separately in Exhibit 3 on packet page 71. This table shows the top-ranked local segments organized by treatment types with the worst PCI breakout. Again, overlapping segments are in bold. The rankings have more distribution between treatment types in this case. The local roads were then grouped into projects for estimating. This table shows the projects created and their costs. This slide shows a map of the local roads included in estimating. Now back to Chris for the budget.
So our budget for fiscal year 2027 was discussed at the RTC in April. We had $2.8 million for regional roads in fuel taxes. The Street and Highway Fund, formerly the V&T Fund, 3.1 is approved by the Board of Supervisors through the tentative budget process. That's all dedicated to local roads. Waste Management Franchise Fee, $390,000 can go to either regional or local roads. And then federal STBG funding is available to Carson City through federal fiscal year 26 from CAMPO in the amount of $1.3 million, and that has to be used on regional roads. It cannot be used on local roads. So the total amount of budget to the transportation sources of revenue in fiscal year 27 is $7.6 million. We also have the option to use $380,000 in CDBG funding, and staff is recommending that funding be applied to the 10th Street and Division project, which is a local road project that can be used for sidewalk and ADA compliance, which would lessen the cost needed from our fuel taxes and other transportation sources. So we can complement those federal dollars, which do not have the limitation of being limited to regional roads, but cannot be used on pavement. They must be used on sidewalk and ADA elements. So nuanced buckets of money at the federal level, and we're trying to use them and leverage them as best we can. So you have the $7.6 million plus the $380,000 in CDBG funding. Casey.
Based upon the available budget, the shown regional projects are recommended to proceed. Both South Carson Street segments were combined for one large preservation project from Appian to 5th, and Curry Street between 10th and 6th Streets is the second regional project. The recommended local projects are first project, 5th Street between Thompson and Division, 10th between Division and Carson Street, and Division between 10th and 5th. Second project, Jackson between Sonoma and Grant, Pat Lane between Silver Sage and Grant between Sonoma and Rolando. And the third project, 5th Street from Richmond around the corner where it ends there on the west, turning into Terrace Street and then ending at Patton Street. The total project's cost for District 4 is $7,741,600. This is within the total budget of $7,983,841, including that $380,000 of CDBG that is planned to be used on the 5th, 10th, and Division project. The next steps for projects that move forward will be to finalize scope to include utility work and funding, create project numbers and move that funding into the project. Design is expected to start in the fall. Preservation projects will be constructed next summer. Rehabilitation projects will target the summer of 2028 for construction. That concludes our presentation.
Okay. Can you, maybe you don't have the answers, but one of the things that would be helpful to me is, and I should have contacted you in advance so you could have the answers, but when I look at like South Carson Street or Curry Street, we've done a lot of projects on those streets. So can you tell me when the last time the areas of recommendation of here were touched? When did we do projects there?
The
In the
last,
same spot?
I will look at regional roads
Right.
first. So South Carson Street was repaved in 2021. That was the last time this segment of road was paved as part of the South Carson Street Complete Street Project. We received a $7.3 million Tiger grant to do that. So that's when that was done. So this is in that ideal preservation category where we're preserving the existing pavement to protect that investment, those federal dollars, and ensure the longevity of this road for the next several years, hopefully decades. And so that's why this one has come up on the list, is it's outside of that work history, and it's a preservation project. So we'd be doing microsurface on this one. Curry Street, I don't know the last time Curry Street was touched. There's been some patching on there, but I don't have a date offhand. Definitely not in the last 6 years that I've been here. I don't know if Commissioner Maloney remembers. No, shaking your head. So it's at least 10 plus years since we've been in that area of Curry Street. On the local road side, we've recently done some projects. I'll start with the south, the Jackson, Pat, the purple one. We've done some projects in that neighborhood south of Sonoma. And so this is sort of continuing what we've done down there, but these particular roads have not been touched probably since the 90s, looking at the pavement. So it's 30, 35 years since any of these roads were touched. 10th and 5th and Division, 5th Street is failing. I was looking at some as-built. There was a water line project, I think in the early 90s, and that patch is still visible from when that water line project was done, which tells me we haven't done anything on that section of road since that water line was constructed and placed in that area. So, I mean, I think we're talking in general, short of South Carson Street, probably 10 to 30 years since we've been on any of these roads.
And again, on this, for people to understand, it's the west side of Fifth Street. Not the east has had, well, it has some projects, so.
We have
I just think
other-
it's important that
Yes.
people realize Fifth Street's long, very long, so I just don't want people to assume we're going back where we
We're not.
already have been. That's why I really asked the question.
I wanted to note, Madam Chair, that the segment between the red and the yellow is our vulnerable user pedestrian safety improvement project. And so we will be patching and preserving that this summer, starting June 1st, where construction begins on that project. So pretty soon, we're going to have that whole segment of Fifth. And so that was one of the factors we were considering as well, is do we want to leave portions of Fifth failed, or do we just want to, let's take care of Fifth Street? So that segment's not being forgotten. It's being included in a separate project already going to be under construction this summer.
That's good. Okay. Thank you. Does anybody else have a question? Commissioner Maloney.
Going back to South Carson Street, I think it's important to put it in perspective, maybe in a different way, which is of our roughly $4 million for regional roads, 3/4 of that money for District 4 are being recommended for a road that was done 5 years ago. And since we're in a 5-year cycle, that means for this district, 3/4 of the money every 5 years is going to be recommended for the same 2.5 miles of road, because the best practice or industry standard is every 5 years you come back with a maintenance and a preservation. So this is a good example of very clearly showing it's not that money's being mismanaged, it's there's not enough money.
Right.
This is one road taking 3/4 of the money every 5 years. And so I think that's really interesting to phrase that way. There are a lot of regional roads on the list to prioritize. So I think to Mayor Bagwell's comment previously, and maybe to spin it a little bit, is this the best road for us? Is it putting the money in the same spot, the right choice, or does this commission want to discuss potentially other options?
I think that is the discussion point for all of us, right? This is a preservation project that you look at to say how much traffic is on it, because it's heavily used. And is there, what really would be the other potential regional road in District 4 that could be considered? And yeah, so if we're really looking at it, what else is out there for consideration? So if you look at the price, we're flipping through, how much was the amount that we're going to do for the South Carson? Is that the 2.8? And so if you look at it and say, would it be wiser, we're going to do some Curry Street to pick up King Street. That's kind of where that's at $1.1 million. And while we just did Colorado, is this going further on Colorado? I'm like, wait, we just did
Yes,
Colorado.
Madam Chair, this is the portion between South Carson and where we ended at
Ended.
Utah Street. So this is that last portion there.
Mhm. But as stated, is it better to come to, or even just to pretend, is it Sonoma and Cochise? Should we put those two together and get more road? And I think that's right, but I get 2.54 miles for 2.8 million as a preservation, which is keeping good road good, which is what, right? Versus 0.6 of a mile, because those will require reconstruction. And I think it's a great discussion that we should have, which has higher priority and which roads. And I look at the traffic to them and you say, okay, which ones do we need to address first?
South
Good
Carson
question.
obviously benefits the most businesses and the most commerce in
Yes.
Carson City.
Yes.
And the staff, I think, could speak to this more, but those 2.5 miles it's a much easier job. So you're getting more bang for your buck. The traffic control is likely easier than some of these, like King Street with all the driveways, or Sonoma or Colorado.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just wanted to give a couple of frames of reference to maybe assist in the conversation. We do have traffic volumes. South Carson Street between Appian and Stewart sees 25,000 vehicles per day. Outside of South Carson, the next highest road is Colorado Street at 3,000 cars per day. So there's an order of magnitude, obviously, there. And that is a part of our scoring system, is the use of
Yes.
the road. I also want to note that our scoring system, 2021 is slightly outside of the 5-year window, but we do have, as part of the work history component in our scoring system, where we consider, did we just do work on the road the previous cycle? And we tend to exclude roads where we just did work the previous cycle. So I can't say for sure this road will probably pop up, but for that reason, we may exclude it in 5 years if that's, so that's something we do consider. We don't want to repeat and just do the same road over and over again. That's part of our scoring system that we do consider. So I'm
Well,
not going
and
to
no other
guarantee
roads
it's
would
going to
ever
be the
get done.
recommended one.
Right? We would be ignoring all the other roads at that level too, but sure.
A key point, if you don't do South Carson now, it'll be 5 years before we look at it again. And the PCI is probably going to go downhill a lot quicker in the next 5 years. So I have no problem investing in that now or with any of the other projects you guys have come up with. I drove them all and I don't see any problems. I mean, it's work that needs to be done. Work has been done on Curry Street, but north and south of this, and there's other projects coming. So I think it's a good process and it's data-driven, and that's why we hire you guys. This is good. Thank you.
I think it's always important that we're discussing it, because I think it's important to the public when their road is not selected in the local road. Why wasn't mine picked? Because we have to do data-driven decisions when we're making the choices of what to pick. But by doing the transportation districts, they at least get an every 5-year shot at it, right? Because otherwise you'd have areas of town that would get 0, right? just would never see a road in their area. So I think we are doing a good job looking at the data to help drive the decisions that we're making. But I also think it's wise to discuss what stood out about the choice, the why. Did we pick this road versus, people that would like their road done too, especially in our local road arena. So we're all kind of okay with saying yes on the regional roads, and or Mr. Costa?
Yes, I had had a number of comments that I was looking at or wondering about here. I think it would be helpful, and there may be a lot of numbers involved, or to go ahead and have the calculations behind the scores available to us, or maybe have some for the public, sake of the public, is to have a brief description on why some roads with a very low PCI were not selected on this, so that they would understand, because periodically we've had people come to the Board of Supervisor meetings and so on, when they considered, for example, whether or not to transfer the V&T fund over to this new fund for local roads. People were asking, well, my road, I've been there 17 years or, some long period of time, and I've never seen anybody work on my road. And I think we have to become more transparent on that and, explain to the people how we got these numbers and how we got these selections. The local roads, I was looking at the local roads, we're going to be working on 1.44 miles of local roads, which is an improvement. But the regional still is at 2.72 miles, nearly twice as much. And that's just one measure or just one way of looking at that. But some people may take a look at that in terms of, we're still emphasizing on the local roads, and here we voted this transfer of a tax authority to that. And I think we need to go ahead and I understand we're on the 5-district system, and we implemented that in 2023, and we got, in a couple more years, before everybody gets hit on this district system. But I think we need to go ahead and make people aware that periodically, at least, every 5 years or so, we'll take a look at that, about visiting a particular district only once every 5 years. We may need to reconsider another way to go ahead and do this. I don't want to talk out of turn, but I think we're seeing, some of the concerns with our existing system of using one district every 5 years. And I'm glad that we have the prioritization system that we have. We can go ahead and use that as a justification for that, of how we selected these roads. But I would like to see some of the calculations on how we got the list that we got. So, thank you.
Is there any other comments? Anybody else? Okay, is there any public comment on this item? I don't see any. Happy to bring it back for any motion or further discussion. You ready? I was going to call it Commissioner Schutte. I get the right title to the right meeting.
I move to approve the recommended performance district for projects as presented.
I will second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. Let the record reflect it was unanimous. And just, for the record, certainly every 5 years, I don't think it matters the policy, our strategic plans, everything that we do in this city. I think Mr. Costa's right. Every 5 years, you take a look and say, am I on the correct track? Do we need any slight changes? Is there anything else that we know that would improve what we're doing? So certainly I concur with every 5 years we should take a look at everything we do. So thank you. Okay, agenda item 5C. This is a determination on Nevada Barricade and Sign Company for our Jack signs and lighting projects for $335,950. And whoo, we're all the way down to a 5% contingency. We don't have enough money to eke out a 10%? I don't know. Casey, is there a highlight or anything that you need to bring to our attention?
Yeah, I would just like to note that when this project was originally advertised for 4 weeks, which is typical process for Public Works, that there were no bidders on the project. It was re-advertised for 10 days. To our surprise and delight, a bidder did come in after the 10-day period, and that was Nevada Barricade and Sign. So this is that bid moving forward for this project.
Does any
And that
member
is all
have a
that I have to add
question?
on that.
I don't see any question. Oh, you have a question, sorry.
We have needed this project for almost a decade, so thank you for seeing it through.
Yeah. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, Ms. Maloney, would you like to make the motion?
100%. I move to award the contract as presented and to authorize the Public Works Director to approve expenditure of the 5% contingency if needed.
I second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect it was unanimous. Okay, we're now on to agenda item 5D. This is discussion and possible action for the approval of our Transit Development and Coordinated Human Services Plan, required every 5 years. So here we go, right? So you're ready, Marcus? You can just give us some highlights,
Yeah,
or you want us to bombard you with questions? No, we're just kidding.
I'll say a few words.
There you go, I like it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Marcus Myers, Transit Coordinator. The Transit Development and Coordinated Human Services Plan serves two primary objectives. The first is the transit development portion, which covers the short and long-term projects and priorities for the transit system. Second is the Coordinated Human Services Plan, which is a strategic document that identifies the transportation needs of specific groups, such as seniors and individuals with disabilities, and then outlines the strategies to address those needs. Following presentations of draft versions of this plan to the CAMPO and RTC boards, as well as a 15-day public comment period, which began on February 6th and ended on February 20th, staff have made a number of updates to this plan. Specifically, beginning on packet page 322, alternate travel modes such as deviated fixed routes, van pool, Uber, Lyft, and taxi partnerships, as well as cost analysis for interlocal agreements with Douglas and Lyon counties, were researched and discussed in an effort to better serve Carson City. On packet pages 333 through 336, there's details. Packet pages 333 through 336 detail recommendations for facilities, infrastructure, technology, equipment, and site safety security. Updates to these sections include discussion around the downtown transfer plaza and signal priority and preemption. Additionally, the implementation guidance table on packet page 345 was expanded upon to include those updates I just mentioned. I would also like to touch on the service network and service level options presented in this plan. Starting with the route network, there were two service network options identified, which can be found on packet page 314. The first would keep the route network largely as is, with minor adjustments to provide connections to a few highly requested locations and would remain cost neutral. The second would optimize the route network with a full route refresh. A potential option for an optimized route network can be found on packet page 316. This option would include major changes to routes 1, 2A, and 2B, and minor changes to Route 3. This option would include moderate capital costs associated with implementing new ADA-compliant bus stops, but is generally expected to increase ridership. It's also important to note that this is a preliminary redrawing of Jack's routes, and further outreach and input would be required before moving forward, with any major route changes as required by city policy and Title VI regulations. A number of service level options were also identified, which describe the various days, times, and vehicle deployment options to operate the transit service. These service level options can be found on packet page 325 and could be implemented in line with either of the network options that I just mentioned. These options include maintaining current levels of service, reducing weekday hours, operating fixed route service during peak periods and an on-demand service during off-peak periods, and repurposing or eliminating weekday or weekend operating hours to remain within budget constraints. This plan will help shape the future of Jack and public transit in Carson City over the next 5 years. I don't believe that there's any question that access to reliable transportation is a daily need of almost, if not all, residents of Carson City. And I'm happy to present this plan and the recommendations within, which aim to ensure reliable transportation is available to everyone. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I'll start with just, could be when I'm just not reading it right or whatever, on packet page 272. On the Jack Assist. One-way trip within 3/4 of a mile is $3. And then it says one-way trip within 3/4 and 1 mile is $6. They both say within 3/4 of a mile. So is it a little bit less than the 3/4? They both say the same part of 3/4, so I'm just trying to make sure. If I'm at 3/4 mile, what do I pay? 3 or 6?
$3.
Three.
It would likely be better worded if it said between 3/4 and 1 mile.
Okay,
You pay 6.
good. I'm just, it's one of those things you start reading something and I'm like, well, if I can't figure out what I owe, because they say the exact same thing. And then I had another question on packet page 324. When we talk, and we had someone testify in public comment about wanting to add services from Lyon County or Dayton and things of that nature, and I'm reading here that you're estimating once per day on week is estimated at $75,000 per year, with a local one-time startup cost of $95,000 for the vehicle purchase and stop. Approximately 60% of the cost would be attributable to Lyon County. I'm not understanding. I don't have the service from Lyon County now. Am I reading this to say that Carson City would be responsible for 40% if we brought people in from Lyon County? Is that how I'm reading that?
So this was
It is
based
how I'm
off,
reading it.
similar to our agreement with Washoe, thank you. Similar to our agreement with RTC Washoe, it's a mile-based breakdown. So the miles that we spend in Lyon County versus the miles are spent in Carson City is how we get that determination.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
that doesn't mean that has to be the model.
Oh, thank you, because I want to help, but the
Yeah,
only reason
yeah.
we'd be adding the service at all is for
Benefit
Lyon
Lyon
County to provide a service to their residents, which I applaud that completely, right? But I don't want the Carson City resident, and I already don't have enough money for my roads. I just can't see me saying, wait, now I owe 40% of $75,000 to bring those people in for services in Carson City. Not that maybe they're, anyway, I just want to bring that up. So based on what's sitting here, is there anything we need to change, add, discuss in this final document to just based on the current modeling, but we would consider a different model? I mean, I don't want Lyon County assuming that if they come forward with what they're working on, that we're gonna fork up 40%. So
Yeah, Madam
I
Chair.
object a little bit to this.
No,
Sorry.
I appreciate the conversation, and I think, discussing that and nuancing that, it could be beneficial to the plan. Over the years, we've heard staff, you've heard as board members, the need for more service on US 50 in particular, out at the rural housing DD4 master. And
Yes.
so, we have no service out there now. This could be part of that solution. So there could also be, depending on how it's set up, some benefit to Carson City people, residents, that we may use that may not be attributable to Lyon County. So we don't have all those thoughts, all that framework worked out. Additionally, if Lyon County is looking at purchasing a bus, maybe they need a driver, maybe there's another model, maybe our contractor doesn't provide that service, maybe we only provide a bus. So, and the maintenance
Right.
for that, but there could be some other models that I think we would need to work through as Lyon County starts to develop that. What we tried to show here was a theoretical, what would the cost be if we started a service like this? And there's a similar one for Douglas County. We've really never had those sort of analysis that I've found that really show what is the cost of this? What are we talking? Are we talking tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands? And so this is sort of a theoretical, here's, if we wanted to stand this up, here's what we're talking about. And it's sort of a basis of discussion, but maybe it's a little too nuanced, too detailed, and I appreciate
I
your
don't mind
comments,
the
so.
cost center being identified. I only minded it when it started with approximately 60%. I was like, no, I don't want that part in there. I don't mind the thought process of telling people what does it cost to do the project. And I'm more than happy to listen to but to remove the approximately 60% would be attributable to Lyon. I don't want to go into negotiation already telling them you're 60% and we're 40. I just, it's not needed, right? Standing up and letting people know a cost, I think is wonderful. So just again, are you all kind of in agreement that should be struck? Oh, see, we are good. We are good. Let me see if I had anything else marked as, you guys did a great job on this work. Great job.
Yep, there's a lot in here.
Oh, there's so much information that really, but I think that was the two that really, I don't know, just stood out to me. So maybe does someone else have something they,
Marcus or
Greg?
Chris, I wasn't sure if the additional work you want to do, possibly with Lyon and Douglas, your overall FTA allocation would cover that? Or, we were talking about the local match, but is there enough federal funding? Because I know we don't spend it all at this point. So can you give us a ballpark feedback on that?
Yeah, I believe, and Chris can correct me if I'm wrong, Lyon County would be eligible for Section 5311 funding, which is something Carson City doesn't currently receive.
size?
I don't know if that entirely answers your question.
Yeah, Marcus covered the Lyon County, even he's correct in that. The Douglas County, I don't think there's any real change to our cost. It's just the routing, whether we loop around and by Costco and Fuji Park, or we loop around through Topsy, it really doesn't change our operating costs all that much. And so the dollars for the FTA perspective are relatively small, if not negligible for that component.
But the Topsy loop would create the Jack Assist.
It would,
That
yes.
would indeed change our cost centers.
Yes, and
No, no,
those costs
they
would be
wouldn't.
attributable, and we would bill that back to Douglas County as
Right.
outlined in the report, yes.
If the rider was a Douglas County resident, we would charge them for that.
Correct.
Okay. I like that better, that they pay, right. I mean, it's hard because we are regional, and I want to be regional and helpful on projects when we should be, but when I'm struggling to make ends meet for Carson City with the roads and this, I want to be mindful as I can be, because like you said, Dee Dee has been up several times wanting to add stops and things, but each of those things costs money and time, and potentially time on the route. And then will less people ride on the route because now it takes longer to circle back to get if you're going there. But overall, I think, again, great job. Mr. Costa? Questions?
Yes, thank you for, there's an awful lot of information in here, and have a number of questions. First thing that kind of surprised me is that we had talked about before about the decline in ridership, and both for jacket assisted and general ridership also. But I was looking at pages 226 and 227, and as I understand, the transit propensity from 2017 to 2023 declined quite a bit in the areas of low income, people with disabilities, limited English, and also in Douglas and Lyon counties too. And I'm wondering if that could have driven, assuming these numbers are accurate, if that could have been driven down our ridership, irrespective of COVID-21 or COVID-19. And don't know if you had any thoughts on that, or if I'm interpreting this correctly.
I'll say it's really difficult to put a finger on exactly what drives ridership, exactly what influences or why it changes. My take on the data, looking at it, especially with COVID, and I spoke to this a few meetings ago, is in line with COVID when you see ridership drop, and then for 2 years it's propped up, what I believe is attributed to fare-free transit. And then once that free fares is ended, it drops again. So I guess I don't know that I really have a straightforward answer for you. I think that COVID had a lot more to play in it than some of these other areas. I can say, on a side note, that this year we are seeing ridership grow. So for the fiscal year, as of this time last year, July 1st to May 1st, we're up 5,753 trips across the system. So we are seeing ridership rebound and very much more than it has in recent years.
Okay, well, that's good news that ridership is apparently rebounding. Is it possible to get this data on the low income and people with disabilities later than 2023? I think that would be helpful, because if we're going to talk about transit propensity, it'd be good to verify, some of the data. And if these numbers are going up again, then that would go ahead. We may be able to use those as indicators for future plans, which we desperately need that kind of data to project our expenses, because as we all know, the expenses just keep going up quite a bit. I had a question also on pages, or section, it's pages 338 and 339. You look like some of the...
Mr. Casa, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to answer your previous question.
Okay.
The latest data, this is the latest data that we can get right now, but we do produce an annual monitoring report for CAMPO and for Jump Around Carson that we will update, and we can include these types of tables if that's a beneficial use to you all as part of those future reports, so it's not just a once every 5-year thing.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Thank you for providing that additional information. Going back to 338 and 339, looking at looks like the bar graphs on 339 in particular, they cover certain years. I don't know if, it's just at the bar graph or a particular bar, for example, fiscal year 2024. Does that include part of, if it goes from July to July, or is it just something that it just slipped over?
I had not noticed that. I don't know why that is.
Because we have 6
off
bars.
center like that as it is in the middle.
Yeah, we have 6 bars in 7 years. So it'd be good to go ahead and make sure we have those lined up where it's supposed to go. Also looking at the expenses or the operating revenue, for that 20 to 25 year period, quite a shift in that where the local money now at 2025 was 750,000. In 2022, a few years before that, was only 46,000. And we're in a situation here where we do have a general fund concern, general fund shortage for that. And it's obvious, it looks like here that the local money increased or compensated for the decline in federal money. Is that basically how it worked? We have less federal money in 2025 than we did in 2022. Did we go ahead and compensate for that with more local money?
I believe that's due to what was purchased or what was paid for and the match associated with those purchases.
Okay.
So operating expenses, for example, are reimbursed at 50%.
Mr. Costa? Sorry, Marcus.
No, you're fine.
I just wanted to interrupt it. Just wanted to clarify that there are a number of federal grants that did not have any local match requirements, such as the CARES Act, the American Rescue Plan, some other programs that were issued through the federal government from the COVID era relief funds that negated the need for any local dollars to be spent. So we're actually getting more federal dollars than we were then through the IIJA. Our FTA apportionments have increased. We're getting over $2 million a fiscal year now in FTA dollars, but there's no more free money. It comes with a match.
Okay, now is those emergency increases didn't require any match, that federal money, is that going back down again because the COVID's over with? So it's gone, so we're going to see something looking quite a bit different over the next couple of years.
Correct.
For that. I think one of the things rather than going over all these points, there's one thing I wanted to go ahead and bring out. Possible way to go ahead and look at transit differently, maybe reduce costs and improve on-demand transit, which seems to be looking at some of the data you have from the questionnaires, people responding is they want on-demand transit. The Wall Street Journal had an article May 5th, for example, talks about the dramatic increase in robot taxis. Taxis that drive themselves, vans that drive themselves, and it's being used already. There was about, looking at 15 million riders, I believe it was, and they're looking at increasing that pretty shortly to 35 million. A lot of companies are getting into that. Tesla, of course, is a famous company. They're operating only currently in Texas, and but they're looking at expanding into 13 other states. I don't know if Nevada is one of them. Like I said, almost all my information is from this article. There's another company called Waymo that is increasing that, and I'm wondering if we could go ahead and study this or get information from these states that are involved, and I can provide that to you offline. Maybe they would be able to provide us information on what the costs are, how that impacted their budgets, the ridership, and how they look at expanding that. I'm not talking about something we'd be able to implement in the next year or two, but maybe we can do a study now and maybe do a pilot project where we have some on-demand EV vehicles that are automated and try them on a basis, a local basis, and see if they work and see how they impact the costs and if they provide support to our clients that is really needed and that our clients would appreciate. So I wanted to go ahead and close with that and find out a way that we can go ahead and implement that. Oh, and I made a mistake. I had one more question. There's a lot of things here where if I interpret it correctly, we're asked to make a decision, like what options to follow and what changes to make in the program. Do you want that from us now or in the near future, or are we going to come back to that?
If you have thoughts now, I think that we're absolutely open to listening. This is a 5-year document and kind of goes into how we could move forward.
Mr. Costa, ultimately the item is agendized for action of approval. So if there are changes to the recommendations in here, I think that could be discussed. But we don't plan to bring this back. This is the item, subject to your all's input and approval unless you direct us otherwise.
Well, let me talk about that a little bit differently. There are several options that can be addressed within this plan. The individual items, as they do the studies or the reviews, they would bring those back for action, just like you're suggesting, right? So they might go through 3 of these and say, okay, we've decided here's a route change, or here's a deal with Lyon County, or here's a deal with Douglas County. Those would come back. It's, for me, if you think an option for them to study, though, is missing, and we want that in the plan so we could potentially implement it, this is a great time to say, oh, how about we add in, we could consider whatever you had in the newspaper article, just as an option that would be studied. Not that we're going to implement anything, but that, again, something else came up that could be considered somewhere in the 5-year review. So if you want to add that in, I think it's a good idea if you want an opportunity for them to look at it in the next 5 years.
We had also talked about a pilot program where they changed the routes of, in fact, I made a comment to the staff that I thought it was a good idea to go ahead and change the routes, have a pilot test that follows more along the lines of major drop-off points or people pick up points and things like that. I don't know if I saw that in here or if we, that,
I think that's part of the enhanced ridership goal.
okay, part of it, it's
Yeah.
already in there. Okay, but I would like to go ahead and add the information here that we study the use of robotic EV vehicles to go ahead and provide transit services possibly in the future if it turns out to be
Okay.
feasible.
Okay, so we have, I think, 4 updates, right? One, you're just gonna fix the wording for the 3/4 mile. The one, you're gonna take out the sentence dealing with the 60% on the Lyon County. You're gonna fix the table that has 6 bars but 7 years noted. You're gonna align that one way or the other, either way. And then we're gonna add in a comment for a potential consideration for robotic EVs. Right, so that's what we have so far. Does somebody have another one? Miss Maloney? Okay, got 4 on the
I have a
records.
couple comments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You bet.
Within the strategy section that starts, the strategies that start on packet page 254, staff did a really good job, I thought, of adding some graphics that kind of visually make it clear what the priorities are. On those ensuing tables under the priority rankings, I just wanted to make sure I was reading this right. So low priority is 2/3 of a circle, medium priority is 1/3 of a circle, and high priority is a full circle. Was that intentional? It's kind of confusing.
That was not intentional,
You
but that
think
is
low and
accurate.
medium should be flipped? Yeah, so that it
Yeah, and I'm
bigger
actually
and bigger and bigger?
I'm actually feeling like the tables might be correct, but the label at the bottom of the tables might just be backwards, but it was hard for me to tell. And so maybe that's a correction that could just
They
be
can just do a
confirmed-
validity check. Right,
Confirmed,
right.
because my tiny cat brain got distracted and confused.
I will verify.
Thank you.
Looking at it right now, I think you are correct, though.
Well, and one doesn't match even. It looks like a bigger medium. Anyway,
Yeah,
just confirm
Just
the
confirm it.
priority rankings. Confirm.
totally fine. And then my other comment had to do with the peer agency service comparison starting on packet page 295. And I appreciated your really succinct presentation, Marcus, but I did feel like it was important to put some of this on the record. The National Transit Database is cited in the table on packet page 295, and that's something that I encourage all of the commissioners to go on and look at it, and the public as well that are interested in transit. You can compare similar services nationwide. These are federally required statistics. Staff pulled out 5 different peer transit agencies, and I just wanted to highlight, on packet page 295, we're on average 9% smaller of a population than the peer agencies reported in the plan. However, if you go to the right, our operating costs in 2024 are more than half less on average than the peer agencies. So what this means is we're 10% less population, but we're 50% less funded. And so our ridership is 50% of the average in this table, but our vehicle revenue miles are only 40% less than average. So what that means is we're more efficient. We're running more miles, even though we're half as funded. And if you go to the following page, figure 30, boardings per revenue hour. So this is a key statistic in the transit world, right? Which is revenue hour. We're paying bus drivers, and we're also getting revenue for fares, right? On average of the peer agencies, it's 6.3 boardings per hour that we're paying people and getting revenue, and we're above that. So we're getting more riders than the average per hour. If you go to the next page, the operating costs per hour, on average, it's $109.50 an hour, but we're less than average. We're more efficient than average. And so operating costs for boarding, average, is $17.95 per boarding. We're $16.20 per boarding. So yes, we're slightly smaller per population. We're half as funded. We're more efficient, and we're doing better. And I think it's an untold hero story here in Carson City of the staff, of our contractor, but also the demand for our service. We have populations here in Carson City that need transit, and I understand the revenue constraints at the city. And we've talked about it a lot. Where do we get the general fund? And I agree with many things that the supervisors do, but on this instance, I do think that these numbers show that we are underfunded for transit.
I don't think we disagree, but we're underfunded in everything. So it really becomes a priority, right? Where are we putting our dollars? Where do we get the most good use? So I appreciate the statistics and the stuff, and certainly I serve on Tahoe Transportation District, and we look at all these same stats, and it's like, why is this one so expensive? And so it's very expensive up at, Lake Tahoe to provide transit services. So it's like, but try taking the service away. No. Big fat no. Yeah, they want to expand there too, right? And people want the bus to be faster, headways, and it's like, there's just no general fund match to do those either.
I can't speak for Tahoe, but I can
Right.
say for Carson,
Right.
we are significantly underfunded, and the demand is there, and our staff and our team is doing a really good job.
They are. They're doing a great job. Great.
Yeah, thanks for the thorough report. There was quite a bit to wade through. And some of it was familiar and some of it was new, and okay, we got it sorted out. I do like the way you have the timeline for all the items as well. Kind of lays out the priorities in a reasonable manner that, what you guys can actually handle and what's important to us. We didn't mention it directly, but under Carson City's revised master plan and all the building that's going on in the downtown area between the apartments and the state employees coming back in, I think that probably bodes well for more transit use. And as a minimum, more people are going to be walking around if they're living downtown. So I think, again, it wasn't mentioned in here, but yeah, there's going to be more folks in the area, and I think they'll probably be taking the bus more. So thanks.
Any other?
I just appreciate on page 325, the deviated fixed route, and thank you for that explanation on that. I think it's important, and to be able to kind of meet the needs as, you know, in real time when possible, it's nice to have that option, potentially.
Okay, so no change. Okay, let me see if there's any public comment for anything else we need. Come on up. Is it green?
Yeah.
There you go, you're
Yes.
green.
Have-
No, you don't have to hold it.
Okay. My name is Maximilian Lowe, and I'm a new resident to Carson City, and I'm proud to say that I love Carson City as my new home. And I'm speaking on behalf of Rural Center for Independent Living for Master, and I'm speaking about how the Jack system and Jack Assist has helped the disability community a lot. That it has provided a lifeline as their only transportation to getting to doctor's appointments, employment, and we would like to see the Jack system to be expanded to the US 50, where all the nonprofits and the food banks are, because a lot of the people with the disabilities are very low income, and because of the cost of living and everything, it would be easier to have the Jack system in down the 50, down where like Rural Center of Independent Living is, where the advocacy centers are, and like the Class C seconds and like the Dream Center. So it would be beneficial and to be able to have equal access to be live independently as possible, and that's what I'm here to say, talk about, because it just makes sense that and be fiscally better for everybody in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other public comment? Okay, I'll bring it back up here. We can do a motion as discussed on the record. You've written down all the corrections that we have noted.
Got him.
Got him. He says he's got him. This is scary, you guys. But just in a last moment, did anybody see anything else they wanted changed in the report? Mr. Costa?
Yeah, I just had about that bar chart on 339. What did we decide to do with that?
They're going to correct it.
Oh,
They're
they
either
are?
going to
They're gonna
do
put it-
6 years and
6
6
years.
charts, or
Okay.
they're going to do 7 and 7. It's up to them. They're going to
Okay.
find out which error they made.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Right. You bet.
I would like to move to approve the plan and support the recommendations therein with the corrections and confirmations as discussed on the record.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect it was unanimous. And again, thank you for all the hard work. We know there's a lot of data there for people to really learn about our Jack system. We'll move on to agenda item 6A, our transportation manager's report. Do you have a briefing for us tonight, or?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Martinovich, Transportation Manager. Wanted to note a couple of things. We spoke about fuel tax earlier this evening, and as well as during the CAMPO board, during the Transportation Manager's report. I just wanted to give an update. I've received some data last few days about the number of electric vehicles registered in the state of Nevada. Currently, it's of the total fleet, it's about 4% hybrid or all-electric vehicle in the state based on registrations. So it's still a small percentage. Washoe County has around 6.5% hybrid electric vehicles, and they're seeing about a 1% growth per year. I don't have Carson City's data, but just as a point of reference, 4% statewide, 6.5% in Washoe County. Moving to Safe Routes to School, Erica has been out doing bike rodeos at a number of schools. She's been at Mark Twain, Seeliger, and Fremont, or I think Seeliger's next week. So she's out hitting up our students with bike rodeos and training them on, all the ABCs of riding a bicycle from kindergarten up to the 5th grade. So it's a lot of work for Erica and the support staff. NDOT is helping us with those And so that their staff is there as well. So I wanted to thank Erica for all that work because it's a lot of work. I know it. Speaking of bike rodeos and other events, tomorrow and tomorrow is Thursday. Tomorrow and Friday at Public Works, we are giving our fifth graders our annual Public Works tour. So we have students visiting, and we do have Safe Routes to School booth there for that. So we're excited to continue to share and educate about Safe Routes to School for further ingrain that in our students and the safety and importance of vulnerable users. We also have our North Carson Street comment map and survey remains open. So if you haven't taken that, please do that. If you haven't made your comments, please do that. carsonproud.com to make those comments. I think we're over, are we getting close to 500? I'm looking at Jared or Kelly. I think we're about 500 now. Just 26 short of 500. Okay, so nearly 500 surveys received for North Carson Street. So I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed. We're gonna get to 500. So spread the word about that survey. We are also in discussions with Lyon County, Douglas County, and NDOT on updating our signal maintenance agreements with all three of those agencies. We've drafted some new agreements and we're working through the details of those for, like I said, all three of those agencies. So those agreements will eventually make their way to this commission for review and approval. And we will hopefully, try to clarify and streamline as new signals come on, what are the roles and responsibilities, what are the cost sharings, items like that. So that's definitely in the works with myself and our control systems manager, James Jacklett. We also heard last month, Commissioner Maloney mentioned RTC Washoe, coordinating with RTC Washoe on a report on the intercity, the regional connector. I've spoken with RTC Washoe. Marcus and I met with them a couple of weeks ago, and they've agreed to come and present, likely in August, on the status of how the regional connector is going. Our former employee, Alex Cruz, has graciously agreed to give us that presentation. So we will get to see that in the coming months. And we had a good conversation about as those costs, like our costs, increase, are there ways we can be more efficient? Are there ways we can streamline? I don't know that we're ready to come with those recommendations at this point, but those conversations are started, and we're going to start thinking collaboratively on that. Similarly, with our RTC Washoe, we've coordinated, Marcus and I, a little bit with them on maybe some joint procurement opportunities. If they're buying some shelters and we need some shelters, it's 10 cheaper than 4 or 10 cheaper than 2, or maybe there's some bus procurement. So we're seeing where we can team up and be collaborative in that. Again, thinking we can save costs on both sides here. So just wanted to let the board know that those conversations are ongoing from a transit standpoint. And that concludes my comments, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going to move on. Mr. Cost.
I had a question on that map and that survey on the North Carson Street study is very good, very user-friendly. So I'm, not surprised you've gotten responses on that. Had a question on the map. Is there still capacity available for people to make additional comments on the map itself? Okay.
Yes, the map is fully, you can make as many comments, as many dots as you would like.
And I understand this is going to be open until May 22nd, according to what was in the paper.
Generally, yeah, we're thinking May 22nd, so another couple of weeks. And if, if we want to keep it open, we may do that, but the 22nd for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item 6B, which is our street operations and control system report. And for me, can I understand when it says concrete poured versus sidewalk and flat work? Where are we pouring concrete? That's not the sidewalk repairs, I'm guessing.
Honestly, I will have to get back to you. I do not know off the top of my head. I have not asked
I don't know
question.
why after all this time I thought, oh, wait a minute, sidewalk is different, but where are we pouring concrete?
I will find out and get back to this commission.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on anything on the report stand out to anyone? Okay, then we'll move on to agenda item 6C. Does any member have anything they want to bring up? We are ready to rock and roll. Okay, I'll take final public comment. Everybody left me? Oh, nope, come on up.
Hi, Hi, thank you. Rebecca Bustos, Carson City resident. For public comment, I just like to ask maybe a consideration as we're doing the North Carson study right now, that if we are seeing, like with South Carson, that after so many years that the preservation is needed, that maybe instead of taking from a district, include it as part of the planning of the initial project budget, to know that that's coming in the future.
We won't be able to complete the project.
Because
But okay,
then-
I understand.
Right, because like whatever William Street is on, District 2, I think, they're not gonna have money in the next 5
Oh,
year
those
or
ones
the
we went
next
and got
one.
separate federal grants. We
The-
got a Raise grant, a Tiger grant.
Oh, are you saying we
To
have
do
grant
William
dollars
Street.
for the preservation that'll be needed in the 5 to 10 years in the
Yeah.
future?
No, I'm saying that the original projects weren't because they were part of a transportation districts, because we went and got a big old grant to help us big time. And Lucia was here. Let's see, we got the Tiger grant first, I think, and then we got the Raise grant, so.
Yeah, I think her
Good.
point is we do these major projects,
Yeah.
South Carson, William, North Carson, maybe, and you have to go back and take care of
If
that.
we
But-
know that preservation is going to be required and it's
yep.
going to be so much dollars, rather than taking it from the district when
got
the
it.
5 year comes around, to plan for that,
Yeah.
to know that
Yeah.
expense is
Doesn't hurt
coming.
to ask.
Sounds great.
A public comment for consideration.
Thank you. Mhm. Okay, do I have any other, just in case? Nope, okay, and if there's no objection, great meeting, everyone. Thank you for doing your homework. I really want to say how much I appreciate that this committee really does read their material before we get here. So really appreciate that hard work. So we're adjourned, and somehow it'll come again quickly. These months go by.